Hey, what's good, y'all? This is Musiq Soulchild back at you again. And you already know, I already know, you already know. You know I got soul.
Talk about what your inspiration was behind this project.
I think it's important to keep pressing the issue of being realistic and talking about very complex things, but in a simple way. When it comes to relationships, I think that it helps to sort of diffuse a lot of unrealistic expectations. It assists people in having a more productive relationship rather than a selfish one that I think a lot of us tend to have. And I think that it's natural and it's human to always want what you want, but I think it's important to consider what the other person wants too. So these songs are basically soundtracks for the gray area that a lot of us find ourselves in. And ultimately just to let folks know that I'm still here. As Musiq Soulchild, I'm still here. Yeah.
And I think you captured that on the first single, I Do. And we're loving the song. It's a great song, but when we first heard it, we were flipping out because the song structure, it's so unique.
Yeah.
Like it starts with a chorus, it kind of goes into starts with like a pre-chorus. We couldn't even figure out, is there two hooks on there? Like, can you tell us about the song?
Well, I think that it was important to be interesting too, innovative, because you got a lot of sameness going on. Not to talk down on anybody. Anytime you say anything in that fashion, you feel like, people feel like you hating on folks. And it's not that. It's just, after a while, it kind of creates a situation where it's like, okay, do something else now. Everybody can't be doing the same thing and expecting the same response, because now you start to sound like everybody else. So I feel like it's important to keep things interesting and to just always contribute to an alternative, that there's other ways of doing things. There's other ways of getting your point across. And I didn't even really think about the song structure. I was really more so thinking about getting the message out. It just ended up being that way. I don't usually start my songs off cold like that. It's like, usually there's like a musical intro kind of thing. This time I just gotta get to it, man. Like, let's get to it. I don't have a lot of time, or at least I don't have that kind of time to be messing around trying to be cute. Like, let's get to the point. Right. And I like that really just shoot from the hip kind of approach, because you got to deal with it in real time. And I don't like being too fluffy with it and all pretentious and like, I'm dope, listen to me. Like, no, let's talk about something real. That's pretty much what the approach was.
You put out a couple other songs as well, Alive and Well and Hard Away.
Yeah.
Both dope songs as well.
Thank you.
They kind of remind us of some of the elements you introduced early on in your career. Talk about the direction you went in with those as well.
Hard Away, first of all, Hard Away and Alive and Well, they're called instant grat tracks. Basically, it's a thank you for pre-ordering the album. And if you haven't heard these songs, it's because you haven't pre-ordered the album. Please go pre-order the album and let me know what you think. At least that's how it's supposed to be set up. You probably could just download them. I don't know. Anyway, Hard Away and Alive and Well are just songs that I made available just to let y'all know that I appreciate y'all pre-ordering the album, but also to sort of give you a slight perspective on how diverse the album is. And it's way more diverse than that even. I didn't want people to think that it's going to be a bunch of I do's on there, or just a bunch of I do's and Hard Aways. I just, I wanted it to be, I'm touching on different things. Most of it is about love and relationships. However, all of it is from a real life point of view. But ultimately, I wanted to push the issue of hip hop soul. I think people misunderstand me in a lot of ways because I've always been reserved as an R&B artist. And even though I do make R&B music, I've never seen myself or intended to present myself as strictly an R&B artist. So hopefully people will understand that what it is that I'm doing. I used to just say that it's just soul music, but I think that that's kind of slightly inaccurate because I'm not acknowledging the fact that I have a very huge hip hop energy to what I do in my presentation. So yeah, I think the more accurate description or title or label or category that you could use for the type of music that I make is hip hop soul, because I always tend to have like a rapper's cadence with how I sing, and I talk about more than what your average R&B singer would talk about. Not that that I'm that much more deep or anything, but it's just a little different than the usual topic of the day is in R&B music, which is cool. I'm just doing something different, and not for the sake of just being different, but for the sake of just being me about it.
Since the last Musiq Soulchild album came out in 2011, MusiqInTheMagiq,
You've been 2011.
Yeah,
Wow.
you've been pretty busy actually. You had the duets album with Syleena Johnson. You had introduced a couple of Persona projects. Can you talk about how Musiq Soulchild has evolved the most as an artist in that time, and what area have you grown that will show on this album?
Well, for one, I think that the time off, it may seem to some people that I took, wasn't really time off. It may have been time away from the Musiq Soulchild brand to focus on other things. But I think that doing those things helped me to be a better Musiq Soulchild, because it helped me to get some of all the creative stuff that I have going on internally that sort of it kind of got in the way of the Musiq Soulchild concept. So what I started doing indirectly or subconsciously, I started trying to filter all of that stuff within the Musiq Soulchild brand, which is compromising the integrity of it, which is leaving some people kind of confused, and mostly in my shows, because I'm trying to funnel all of this hyper musical stuff to an audience that came expecting one thing, and it just complicated things. So that's what that's partially the purpose of all the other personas, so I can find a place to as a platform or outlet for that, to get that out of the way. That way I can focus whenever I'm doing Musiq Soulchild. I can focus on just being Musiq Soulchild. So the people that have invested time and money into that brand throughout their lives can feel like they're not being cheated. They're not feeling underserved, so to speak. And I needed that time away, because I was so used to people telling me what I needed to do rather than finding out what it is that I am and living up to that. Trying to live up to certain expectations that weren't real, but I did it because it was working, and I know that people liked it, and I was making money off of it, and blah blah blah. And after a while, it's like, you got to stand for more than that. It's got to be about more than just that. It's got to be more than just the look. It got to be more than just getting to the bread. It got to be more than just winning. It has to matter. It has to amount to something more than that. And I just felt like I wasn't really accomplishing that. So in essence, I had to do some digging and soul searching, so to speak, and that's where I found all of these other levels to myself. And as a creative person, I'm going to breathe life into them and then present myself in those ways, because I know that there's a demo for that, there's an audience for that. But the plan was always to come back and let y'all know that I did all of that to be a better artist, to give y'all a better product, and I didn't know how to do that with all of this stuff in the way. So I think, yeah, working on all of these side projects just made me an ultimately better artist, maybe a better songwriter, a better singer, a better performer, and I'm able to focus on what's really important to meet the needs of my supporters. Which, I'm still working it out, still figuring it out, and what that means is I'm learning how to rise above my own personal sense of creativity enough to serve my audience in the way that they are expecting. It's not fair to expect them to understand all of this creative stuff if they just bought a ticket, got dressed, and got a date just to see a Musiq Soulchild show. But then now you could be at a Prince of George Clinton show. You could be at a Roots show. You don't know, because the music and the energy feels the same. It's like, if I wanted that, I would have went to them. I came to you for a certain thing, you know. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. I got all of this stuff in my head. It's like, they're not obligated to care. And I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying it's not fair to them to tell them to expect one thing off of the albums that I put out and off the songs that they hear on the radio. And then when they come to the show, they get something slightly different. It's the same, but it's not, you know. So, yeah.
Speaking of personal creativity, and then just final thing, this is your first independent album as Musiq Soulchild.
Mm-hmm.
What has that allowed you to do differently? Should we expect anything differently as a result of that?
I don't think that you should expect anything differently per se, you know, me being independent and all. If anything, I would say expect more, because that's the beauty of independence. You really get to do things more closely to what you want to do rather than what you feel like you're supposed to do, you know, for ratings and stats and looks and sales. Which I don't want to downplay them and dismiss them like they're not important. They are. I think that the quality of the product is more important than anything, because it doesn't matter how much you sell or how much you don't sell. If it sucks, you know. So I put quality as priority, and now I'm in a position where I can push it through more accurately rather than a whole bunch of chefs in the kitchen, you know, putting their little shiny 2 pennies in, you know. And then when it don't go according to what everybody expected or projected, then they want to blame you, the artist. And like, well, I was just listening to y'all. I gave all of you a voice, you know, and it did brick, and then you want to blame me. Like, so how about this? If it all falls on me anyway, then I get to make all the decisions. You want to help, cool. I'm open to it, but don't just sit back and complain. Like, that's not gonna help nobody.
Right. What excites you about music, creating music at this point in your career? You've done so much. You've had so many hits, Grammy nominations. What is it that gets you excited and keeps you going?
What gets me excited about making music and putting out music and being creative with music is the reality that it's always an opportunity to affect someone in a positive way. Hopefully inspire someone in a very, very positive and progressive way. Like, I really like doing that, you know, because I like when it happens to me. I like when I'm inspired. I like when I just got put on game from somewhere that I didn't think of, or it never occurred to me, and then when I get it, or I hear it, or I feel it, it's like, oh, I did not think of that, you know. And it helps life to make that much more sense, that, you know, that little bit at a time. So if I can provide that for someone in any way, you know, you can't unknow that. You can't unlearn or unexperience something that changed your life. So I'm always pursuing that. I can't always control whether or not that happens, but I can do my best to contribute to it as much as possible, and just have the faith that it's going to take, you know, and register to people. You know, I can't focus on how people think and feel about what I do. I don't think that that's wise or healthy. I just focus on what I do, what I put out, what my intentions are. I do a lot of internal work when it comes to presenting myself to people with what I have to offer, in the way of my gift, my blessing of creativity, of music and the arts. And I take it very seriously. I take it so seriously that I know that sometimes you can't take yourself too seriously, you know, because now you're making it about you and it's not about you. You know, it's about what's happening. So my inspiration and reason is very nuanced, you know. It's very specific in a lot of ways. It's very general, you know, in others. I can only pray that before my time is up here, you know, in this life on earth, that I would have done something worth everybody's time. I laugh because anyway, I didn't rehearse that. I just saw it coming. I couldn't help myself.
Love it. Thank you so much.